Hey, it's Mika. I just wanted to apologize for not being able to upload on Sunday. I had a throat infection. Anyways, on with our reading. Quote Love, Unquote by New Amsterdam. Chapter 27. Really, Bakugou should have realized sooner that his favorite color is red. As he steps out of the limo, 100 cameras flash in his direction. It's like a fireworks display, condensed in size and time, each little explosion flashing across his vision in rapid succession. Even as practiced as he is, the first few frames will probably be of his instinctive scowl. But then he steps out onto the red carpet, and he's where he belongs. Bakugou-san! Bakugou-san! He can't tell whose voice is actually registering in his ears, because there are a dozen different reporters all saying the same thing. Who are you wearing? He glances down at himself, then looks back up at the cameras with a smirk. Chin held high, he raises a hand on his hip and waits for them to take their pictures before he drawls. Who else? Best jeanist. Thankfully, his go-to designer had let go of his love of denim for the night. Bakugou is wearing black from head to toe, his suit impeccably tailored against his broad shoulders and slim waist. He wears no tie, his silky black button-down undone at the neck. The suit itself is a less stark shade, subtle embroidery in shades of silver and grey, depicting the outlines of roses and vines across his jacket and slacks. His shoes are a glossy black. His makeup was done subtly by Aoyama, dark eyeliner accenting his red eyes, a hint of pale colour across his lips. The camera bulbs flash, and Bakugou changes his expression subtly as he turns to give the press a 360-degree view. One moment, he's brooding and intense. The next, he's flashing a satisfied smirk. Bakugou-san! Bakugou-san! Another torrent of voices, all calling for his attention. Bakugou-san, do you have a date tonight? He almost rolls his eyes. I don't know, he calls out, challengingly. Do I? From where he's been hanging back from the backdrop, Kirishima ruefully shakes his head. At Bakugou's slight gesture, he steps forward and lets the press get about a dozen shots of the two standing together. They'd gotten ready together, so how good Kirishima looks shouldn't be a surprise. His shirt is off-white, not competing with the warm pink of his suit. Bakugou had scoffed when he'd seen it, asked if Kirishima was taking a page out of Rakunai's book. Kirishima had pouted at him, asked, You don't think it will look good on me? And, as boyishly charming and unfairly pretty as Kirishima is, he's pulling it off. Red hair and pink suit, rock star reputation and guileless attitude. Soft and hard all at once. Approachable and admirable. Humble and confident. Bakugou drapes an arm around Kirishima's waist, pulling him closer for one last round of pictures. I don't want to steal your moment, Kirishima protests, pulling himself out of view. This time, Bakugou does roll his eyes, even knowing that the paparazzi are bound to catch an unflattering shot of the whites of his eyes. There wouldn't be a moment if you weren't here, shitty hair. Kirishima shakes his head, laughing under his breath at the insult turned endearment. They head up the red carpet together, crowds roped off to either side of them, and reporters and other celebrities dotted along their path. There's Yaoyorozu in a purple gown with an endless train, next to Todoroki in a maroon suit that's bolder than anything Bakugou's seen him in before. Aizawa is in his customary black, clean-shaven for the occasion and his hair pulled back. Fukukado is wearing pillowing black dress pants and a silky aquamarine top, waving at and laughing at the crowds. Haruo Nejire is in pastel pink, her long blue hair blowing out behind her as she walks. Tagata Mirio is in pinstripes, kneeling down at the velvet ropes to speak at eye level with a young fan, imitating her excited gestures. It's a little strange, how all these people have become so familiar. They've always been a part of his world, but he's been content to be on an island unto himself for so long. Now, when he sees them, he almost feels like smiling. Kirishima pokes at his cheek, beaming at him. Bakugou bats his hand away. "Fucking what?" he mutters. "You have a dimple," Kirishima says, inordinately pleased. "Just a little one, but right there when you smile." He shouldn't be embarrassed. After all, hasn't he already decided to bear himself to Kirishima in every possible way? This guy, his boyfriend, has seen his tears, his rage. Why should his happiness be any more secret? Make him feel any more vulnerable? His cheeks heat up, and Bakugou realizes, to his horror, that he's blushing. "Who's smiling?" he snaps. "You are, babe," Kirishima says, the pet name rolling off his tongue easily. He won't let go of it, no more than Bakugou will let go of shitty hair. "If I am, it's your fault," Bakugou informs him. Kirishima startles at that, and then there's a blush spreading across his own cheeks, his smile going from pleased to soft, tender. "Bakugou." "Shut up!" Bakugou snaps. He grabs Kirishima's wrist, tugging him up the red carpet. "We've got to make it through the whole night. I don't need you getting sappy on me now." "You started it," Kirishima tells him. He doesn't have a good response to that, but with the red carpet rolled out ahead of him and his red-haired boyfriend at his side, maybe he doesn't need one. Maybe he can just linger in this moment and not be embarrassed to smile. Embarrassingly, Bakugou first remembers watching the Quirkies with Deku. They'd been 4 or 5 years old, sitting on the couch between their mothers in the Bakugou family's living room. They'd both been dazzled by the celebrities and film clips showing on the screen, not understanding much of the content, but absorbing the feeling. Yagi Toshinori had won a Quirky that year, and Bakugou still remembers how imposing he was, stepping up onto the stage. His grip on the golden statue was deceptively light, his speech bold and powerful. At the end of it, a graceful and aged Shimura Nana had appeared behind him and embraced him, and Yagi had to subtly wipe the tears from his eyes when he retook his seat a few moments later. The hug hadn't really registered to Bakugou at the time, but he remembers vividly looking at the statue, at the applauding audience, and thinking, "I'm gonna get me one of those." Now, he's sitting between Kirishima and Shindo, with Fukukado and Aizawa at the end of their row, and the rest of the main players of the cast and crew around them. The cast of Million Man is in front of them, and Meat Cleaver is just behind. Bakugou can barely turn his head without seeing someone rich, famous, and beautiful. "You have to practice not scowling," Shindo says lightly, from beside him. Dressed in a bottle green suit, he'd walk the red carpet with his regular date, Nakagame Tatami. "When the camera pans to you, you've got to seem grateful for the nomination, even if you don't win." "I know the fucking protocol." He hasn't yet decided what he'll do if he doesn't win. Clap for Tagata or one of the other nominees? Keep a blank face? Express his disappointment? No doubt there'll be a camera on him the whole time, waiting for the evidence of his bad attitude and lack of grace. Bakugou gnashes his teeth, mad at the very idea. A soft hand lands on his knee, squeezing gently. "Hey, you got nominated. From where I'm standing, that's huge." Kirishima flashes him a smile. "If you don't win, so what? We all know that movie means more than some little award." It had been a few weeks ago that Bakugou had booked up the private screening room at the studio and invited Kirishima to finally watch Make My Story with him. He'd gotten a strange sense of déjà vu from it, remembering the premiere of Ground Zero and how delighted and invested Kirishima was. He was quieter as he watched Make My Story, leaning forward with his chin pressed against his hands. When the scene of Bakugou's breakdown had come on, his own eyes had teared up. After, he'd said quietly, "That was some amazing acting. I really felt my heart break." And what was Bakugou supposed to say to that? That his own heart had been breaking at the time when he'd filmed the scene? That it was sort of acting that wasn't acting at all? He's made a commitment to be honest with Kirishima. But in that moment, he just reached out and clutched at his hand, and trusted that Kirishima would know what he wasn't yet able to say. In his seat at the awards, Bakugou just shrugs. "It's not just about the movie," he mutters. The movie had made back its budget and then some, and Aizawa was being lauded in all the reviews. The movie had done its work, had broken through that invisible screen of respectability and popular appeal that kept gay storylines in the background and on the fringes. But what about Bakugou himself? Where does his performance rank compared to his peers? Is he the best yet? Or is he still just chasing shooting stars? These thoughts still crowd in at the slightest provocation. But then he takes a deep breath and turns to look at Kirishima, whose pride in him is shining in his eyes. Fuck. Bakugou knows he gave a good performance. Maybe the best of his life so far. But if he doesn't win tonight, doesn't that just mean he has to keep trying until he does get a quirky? Until he's an undisputed master of his craft? He's going to try and keep those thoughts at the forefront tonight. What the press chooses to read on his face is up to them. The acting awards come towards the end of the night. Before that, Bakugou is actually enjoying himself. As the awards are handed out, he points out the winners to Kirishima, mentioning his own thoughts on their movies. During commercial breaks, the guests move about, and it seems like dozens of people come by to congratulate Bakugou, to talk about the film, to introduce themselves to Kirishima. Shindo, it seems, knows everyone. He may not be in as many prestige pieces as Bakugou, but he's done his rounds in the industry. TV, film, commercials, voice acting. The guy's been around. And he's infuriatingly well-liked, which Bakugou takes to mean that most people can't see through his saccharine facade. Idiots. The commercial break ends, and the guests are signaled to return to their seats. In a flurry of multicolored gowns and suits, they do, just in time for the curtain to rise again. Bakugou mentally calculates where they are in the night, and then swallows back a curse. Tatsuma Ryoko steps out onto stage, wearing a sleek black and silver gown. She'd taken home the quirky for Best Actress last year. Despite that, she's unassuming as she steps forward, a golden embossed envelope clutched in her hand. "This list of this year's nominees for Best Actors is full of young talent," she says. "While each of them has given performances this year that anyone should be aspiring to, we're also excited to see what's to come in the future from these young men so early in their careers." The audience applauds to that. The old guard of Yagi Toshinori and Todoroki Enji and others seems long gone in this moment. "And yes," Tatsuma continues, "I mean you too, Nishiya-san and Shinya-san. You're still younger than me." Kamihara Shinya, the eldest of this year's nominees, leans back in his seat and lifts his hands in surrender. The crowd laughs, in on the joke that Tatsuma and Kamihara debuted in the same year, on the same film. "And now," Tatsuma says, with considerably more gravitas, "this year's nominees for Best Actor." The screen behind her lights up, and displays first clips of the Million Men, before announcing Takata Mirio, then Meat Cleaver and Shishikura Seiji, followed by Out the Woods and Nishiya Shinji, then Edge of the World and Kamihara Shinya. "This is it," Kirishima whispers into his ear, a little frantic. "That's you!" Make My Story and Bakugou Katsuki are the last to flash across the screen. They've taken a still from the last scene of the movie, where Shindo and Bakugou stand across from each other on the beach, the wind blowing through their hair. The camera pans to Bakugou, his lips slightly parted, his eyes full of hope and wonder at the fact that Shindo has returned. Is that really him, up on that screen? The character in the movie was more vulnerable than Bakugou is, more open to love. And he'd eventually found that love in Shindo's character, despite the many obstacles they'd faced along the way. The audience is clapping, for him and the other nominees. As Bakugou redirects his gaze to Tatsuma, sees her deftly rip the golden envelope open, his heart stops in his chest. All at once, it feels like he's no longer in his own body. Instead, he's watching the awards happening, like watching a movie playing on screen. He's imagined this moment so many times, sitting in the audience of Quirkies, his own name called among the nominees. But there are things he could have never predicted about this moment. In all of his imaginings, did he ever have someone beside him? Could he have ever had dreamed that Kirishima would be here with him, offering his love and support? It's fucking cheesy, but Bakugou thinks as he squeezes Kirishima's hand. I've already won. There are so many things he wants for himself, for his life. He's nowhere done, but shit, if he has Kirishima beside him, if the two of them have now woven their paths so closely together that they'll be together forever. Wow, he's actually looking forward to where that journey will take them. Make My Story was a romance, and so as soon as Bakugou's character had reconciled with Shindo, the story was over. He'd worked hard with Aizawa and Fukukado to craft a character that could live beyond a 2-hour runtime, who seemed real and three-dimensional. But ultimately, that wasn't Bakugou's story. It was a part of what he'd felt, combined with other people's experiences, woven together with some imagination to hopefully make the whole thing compelling and resonant. But he doesn't just want to play a gay character on screen. He wants to live a life where he's beside Kirishima, and Kirishima is beside him, and it's as much of a given as any of those old movie star couples. He wants the romance of a century, of the millennium, with Kirishima. He wants the whole world to know about it. And the quirky goes too, Tatsuma is saying. She smiles as she reads the name, all sharp teeth. Bakugou Katsuki from Make My Story. There's wind howling in his ears, so loud he can't hear anything else. The crowd around him has burst into applause, but he doesn't know who they're clapping for. What the fuck did Tatsuma just say? Kirishima squeezes his hand, grabs his forearm and pulls him out of his seat. Bakugou, get up! You won! It finally registers. His heart pounds against his chest, and he's about to be swept out to sea by the emotions crashing over him. But then he looks at Kirishima, sees the astonished happiness in his face, and he knows exactly what he wants to do. He cups Kirishima's face in both of his hands, and kisses him soundly. He smacks his lips against Kirishima's, a staccato rhythm of 1, 2, 3, until Kirishima finally pulls away and nudges him towards the stage. Your award, he hisses. A hushed whisper. Kiss me later, go get your award. He knows he's smiling as he heads for that stage, as Shindo reaches out to shake his hand, as Aizawa and Fukukado pat him on the back. He wonders if that pesky dimple is showing. He reaches the stage, and Tatsuma hands him a golden statuette, depicting the outline of a woman with her hands planted on her hips, a cape flaring out from her shoulders. Looking down at it, Bakugou sees for a moment not Shimura Nano's most iconic character. No, in that moment he sees All Might. Throat tight, heart beating frantically, face flushed with heat, he stumbles to the microphone. He doesn't have any remarks prepared, no matter how much Sero had tried to get him to write some. Sero had even tried to write them himself, but Bakugou had gleefully ripped the index card in half. Leaning towards the mic, clutching the quirky in his hands, he breathes out. Holy fuck. You all see this, right? I just won a quirky. He wonders if his words will be taken as arrogance, as him flashing the award in the faces of his colleagues. And there is a fair amount of pride rising up in him, validation that he's always been seeking and projecting even when he doesn't have it. But for the barest moment, he really is incredulous. He's being recognized. His performance was the indisputable best of the year. He runs a hand through his hair, then grabs for the mic. Okay, I know you're all waiting for a speech. So first, this isn't a thank you, but I'm sorry. Sero, you were right. You happy? I should have written a goddamn speech. The crowd bursts into laughter. Don't laugh. My agent's been waiting a long time for any kind of apology for me, and believe me, that's the last one he's ever gonna get. You hear that, Sero? Enjoy your moment. It is Sero's moment, too, isn't it? He's been on this journey with Bakugou from the start. Fuck, he's the one who negotiated the deal to get Bakugou this part in the first place. He was the one who believed that being caught making sex eyes at Kirishima didn't have to be the end of his career, but an opportunity. And now I've got to thank some people. And I'm not just saying that to be nice, alright? I know how much work I put into this performance, and you're all right to see that. But no one's ever made a movie alone. Not even me. So here goes. He takes a deep breath. Gratitude and apology don't come easy to him, and he wouldn't offer them just because they're expected. He knows what it took to get here, and only cowards run away from what they're feeling. Aizawa Shoto directed this film. He's unforgiving and harsh, and he'll tell you right to your face when you screwed up a take. But when he works with you, he can help you give the best performance of your life. He doesn't give a shit what anyone else thinks, and that's why he was brave enough to make this movie. In the audience, Aizawa presses his chin against his hand, lips tight. He's trying not to smile, Bakugou's sure. Fukukado Emi wrote this script and wouldn't let any of us get away with getting it wrong. She's also the only person who can laugh at Aizawa-san and get away with it, so you gotta respect that. Fukukado elbows Aizawa on the side, laughing openly. Bakugou keeps talking, thanks the crew and the rest of the cast. Something coils in his stomach, the sign that there's something he has to do, but doesn't want to. But hey, he's got a quirky in his hand. He can afford to be a little magnanimous. A romance is a story of the connection between people. When you're acting it, if you can't connect with your co-star, the whole thing's doomed from the start. You've got to be on equal footing with someone to give the kind of performance that people will respond to. So, Shindo, you told this story with me. I have to thank you for that. You're still a bastard, Bakugou thinks. In the crowd, Shindo lifts his hands and offers Bakugou a deliberate round of applause. Bakugo's eyes skip from Shindo to Kirishima. His boyfriend has both of his hands pressed against his face, his eyes red like he's about to start crying. That idiot. What's there to cry about? Aren't they all supposed to be happy? But somehow, Bakugo's own throat goes tight as he continues. I love making movies. I'm good at it, obviously, but I love it, too. So I wouldn't have gotten this award without Yagi Toshinari. He inspired me to make movies. He pulled me into this world. He's still supporting me. So, Yagi-san, I want your notes on my next performance, too. The crowd laughs again, and Bakugo belatedly realizes that Yagi-san is directing his next performance. He's going to be getting more than notes. But instead of the dread he's been carrying towards that film, Bakugo suddenly feels anticipation. And yeah, Mom, I'm thanking you too. Everyone does it, so don't read much into it. You too, Dad. I know you're watching this and probably crying. You better cut that out, or people are gonna say you didn't think I'd win. He knows his time is running short. He looks back at the crowd, and then at Kirishima. That idiot's really crying now, isn't he? Did he cry like this when he signed his first record deal? When he sang with Crimson Chevalier? Or is there something about Bakugo's accomplishments, his happiness, that really touches him? Bakugo shakes his head, smiling ruefully. But really, there's one person who I can't leave off, and they know who they are, but I'm gonna thank them anyway. Because they put up with me at my worst, and still want to stick around to see me at moments like this. And that's a lot of shit to put up with. But I really love them. The crowd takes in a breath, even though anyone who's read a gossip rag in the last year has to know who he's talking about. He looks up, straight out at Kirishima. He smiles with all his sharpness, all his pride, all the joy he has. I wouldn't have given this performance if I'd never met you. I want to give 1,000,000 more, because you've inspired me. You've made me feel things I didn't think I could, or wanted to. And I'm really happy because of that. I never knew a person could be this goddamn happy. He pulls the statue close, presses a kiss to it, and thrusts it forward. I love you, Eijirou. And I want to thank everyone who saw this movie, who thought something of it. You all have good fucking taste. He turns on his heel and strides off the stage, award still held aloft. There's a commercial break after his speech, and a lot of reshuffling. When he steps backstage, Shindo is there. He grabs Bakugo's arm, tugs him to the side. You didn't have to do that, he says slowly. He isn't smiling. It's a more honest look on his face now. I didn't? Bakugo scoffs at him. Sure, and go down in history as the asshole who didn't thank his co-star. No thanks. Shindo's face twists into a scowl. I don't want you to thank me just because you thought you had to. This guy really doesn't get it, does he? He's always trying to come off as so charming and agreeable. But when he really wants something, you can't help but push for it in the worst ways. If you wanted Bakugo's respect, all he had to do was earn it. I don't do anything because someone else thinks I have to. Bakugo growls at him. It's a good movie, dipshit. You were good in it, alright? And just because they didn't nominate you for an award doesn't mean everyone shouldn't know about it. Again, he's feeling magnanimous. After dissecting the movie with Kirishima, he's been forced to admit that his performance would have been less without Shindo to play off of. He finds the guy irritating, distasteful, pushy, deceitful. But those strong emotions had translated into a strong performance. If he'd been indifferent to Shindo, could he have pretended to love him? "Don't do that," Shindo says, almost a whine. "Don't go getting all mature on me now, Bakugou-kun. How am I supposed to resent you now?" Bakugou rolls his eyes. "Whatever you do is up to you. You can be whatever the hell you want to be, and you can get there on your own work and talent, just like the rest of us. Just stop playing these fucking games, or leave me out of them." It really would have been so much easier, so much more satisfying, if he could just punch Shindo in the face once and get away with it. Unfortunately, they're backstage at the industry's biggest night. Emotions war over Shindo's face. He purses his lips, leans back against the wall in the small niche they've ensconced themselves in. He sighs. "I just never really know how to feel about you. You're such an asshole, but I still want to work with you. And sometimes Oh no, he is not about to say what Bakugou thinks he is. Bakugou lifts a hand, cutting him off. "You don't fucking know me," he tells Shindo. "I am an asshole. But I'm good at what I do, and I'm gonna keep going until I'm the best. But that's not all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna change this entire industry while I'm at it. You're already doing shit like that too. So maybe focus on what you can do, and the people who actually like you for some insane reason. You'll last longer." He doesn't care if Shindo burns out or not, but if no one had ever given Bakugou a chance, he wouldn't have lasted himself. His lips twist into something rueful. "You're a pain in the ass. But I'd work with you again." "God damn it," Shindo says, rubbing a hand down his face. "Please stop being right. You're humiliating me." "You deserve it," Bakugou says. Whether he means the humiliation or the advice, he couldn't say. But for now, there's nothing more that he needs to discuss with Shindo. They made a great goddamn movie. An important movie. And that's what matters. The rest of it, Shindo will have to figure out for himself. There's somewhere else Bakugou would rather be. There's the appropriate amount of screaming, and hugging, and fist-pumping, and kissing, when the show is finally over, and Bakugou and Kirishima have a moment alone. Then there are the after-parties, where the rest of their merry gang of idiots joins them. Bakugou gets toasted by practically everyone he's ever met. He even lets Deku give him a hug, although he makes sure that it lasts no longer than 5 seconds. He's happy, not deranged. The sun is coming up by the time the limo brings them back home. Bakugou thinks he barely has enough energy to make it out of his suit before he crashes into bed. But when they get into the elevator, Kirishima hits the button for the rooftop access instead of their penthouse. "What are you doing?" Bakugou groans, leaning most of his weight against Kirishima, the quirky still clutched in his other hand. Kirishima pets down his hair, holds him firmly upright. "Trust me, would you?" "It's not fair," Bakugou groans. "You know I fucking do." Kirishima kisses the top of his nose, and Bakugou likes it too much to complain about it. "I know," Kirishima says. The rooftop is predictably deserted at 4 a.m. Kirishima deposits Bakugou in a lounge chair, whispering that he'll be right back. Brain too muddled to process what's really happening, Bakugou looks towards the horizon and tries to decide whether the sky is currently red or orange or pink. In a moment, Kirishima has returned, his acoustic guitar slung on. "What?" Bakugou says, intelligently. Kirishima smiles at him, soft and tender. "I finished your song. Can I play it for you?" Bakugou is still working on accepting that so many of Kirishima's songs are written about him, that if he ever wonders how Kirishima feels, he can just pull up an MP3 and hear him sing. For so long, Kirishima's voice has been a balm and beacon. Now, those feelings are only amplified. "You already played it," Bakugou says, "in front of the entire goddamn world." Kirishima's lips pull up into a half-smile. "Just like you told the entire world you love me, Katsuki?" His heart jumps into his throat when Kirishima says his name. There are very, very few people who have the privilege of using his given name. But fuck, if it doesn't feel good hearing it in Kirishima's warm, melodic voice. Bakugou crosses his arms over his chest. "So what? Why shouldn't they know? Our lives are always going to be in the press. I might as well tell them before they make up some bullshit story about it." "That's one way to head off the rumors," Kirishima says, grinning toothily. "So, you get up on stage and tell everyone, and I get up on stage and sing to everyone, and then they don't have to bother wondering." It's a simple solution to a problem that's plagued them from the start. "You're always a shit liar anyway," Bakugou tells him. Kirishima laughs, and if Bakugou could reach out and grab that laughter, hold it against his chest, he would. He has to settle for reaching out and grabbing Kirishima's wrist, pulling it in and kissing it. Kirishima presses his fingertips against Bakugou's lips. "So, your song?" Kirishima says. "You ready to hear it?" As far as Bakugou is concerned, Kirishima has been singing right to him, right to his heart for years and years. But now, they're sitting up on the rooftop, with the morning air chill around them, and the sun rising in the sky. "Yeah," Bakugou breathes out. "Play me a song, Eijirou." "Eijirou, get your ass down here, you're gonna be late!" The tour bus is already downstairs, and Bakugou has heard it honk twice. He taps his foot against the marble tile in the entryway, impatient. At this rate, he's gonna miss his own flight, and diva though he might be, he'll be damned if he's the last star to arrive on set for the beginning of a shoot. "Eijirou! I'm here! Kirishima rushes out of the bedroom, one sleeve of his black leather jacket on, the other flapping behind him as he rushes forward. His socked feet slide against the tile as he comes to a screeching halt in front of Bakugou. "Shit! Is it already 9? I thought we had more time." "Because we were stalling," Bakugou accuses. Kirishima gives him a shit-eating grin, leans in and smacks a kiss across his forehead. "You like my stalling." "Not when it makes both of us late," Bakugou snaps, even though his face is turning warm and red, in a familiar, not unwelcome way. Kirishima shrugs his jacket on fully, jams his feet into his beat-up sneakers. "Come on, you're not gonna miss me at all?" Bakugou rolls his eyes, crosses his arms over his chest. "You're gonna come visit me in 3 weeks anyway." "That's 3 really long weeks, Katsuki," Kirishima whines. "And you're gonna call me every day until then?" Bakugou reminds him. Yeah, but talking on the phone isn't the same thing as seeing you. And then we'll keep doing that for all the months I'm on set. Bakugou grumbles. That's a lot of months. Kirishima grabs both of Bakugou's hands, clutching them tightly. I'm gonna miss you so much. Kirishima's touch is warm, his hands calloused from years of playing the guitar. It's gonna be 3 weeks until Bakugou can touch him again. 3 weeks of intense work on an epic fantasy film, working with Deku and Todoroki and Uraraka every day. Being directed by Yagi-san, not wanting to do anything to let him down. He was so sure he didn't want to make this film when it was first proposed to him, because he knew nothing would make him feel lonelier than being surrounded by people who had known him for so long, but who he couldn't feel close to. Now, he feels closer to them than ever, and it's largely because of the person standing in front of him. Fuck, he breathes out. He grabs Kirishima's arms, pulls him close against his chest, buries his nose in Kirishima's vibrant hair. Fuck, I'm gonna miss you. Kirishima returns the embrace just as strongly. Well, you've got to make a great movie, babe. Knock everyone else dead. Again. And you've got to go on tour. And make sure everyone hears that damn beautiful voice of yours. Bakugou says, close to Kirishima's ear. Kirishima shudders against him, pulls back to readjust so he can press their lips together. The kiss lasts for 1 beat, then 2, then 3, and then... Kirishima! Can you be a responsible bandmate and say goodbye to your boyfriend on time, like the rest of us? They pull apart, turn around to see Ashido standing in the doorway. Cheeks flushed pink, hands braced on her hips, hair a fluffy cloud around her. Hello! We're on a schedule here! Bakugou embraces him from behind. I'll see you soon. He can feel Kirishima swallow. Doesn't want to see his lips pull downwards into a frown. I love you, Bakugou says. Go on, knock him dead. Kirishima turns in the space of his arms, gives him one last kiss. You know when I'm up there, it's all gonna be for you, right? He knows.